Welcome back into Sports Drive once again. I'm your host, Preston Moore. Joining me now, I mentioned we're going to talk a little bit of football. We'll do that now with News Channel 10's very own Riley Robinson. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Loving the spring weather here. I know it's Sports Drive, but I have to mention that. I always have to mention the weather because it's just so crazy how different it is compared to Georgia. Just got back there from this past weekend. Little humidity. My hair's, calming down a little bit now.
Getting back used to the
Texas
Panhandle dryness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But beautiful day. I mean, beautiful time for some spring football.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into spring football, I do want to mention what we were talking about right before we went on air, which is a certain football player that will be in Amarillo a week from today. Recently, when did they announce this? It was
today.
They announced it today.
Yeah.
But Troy Aikman, I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer right now. If he's not a Hall of Famer, he already would be. Troy Aikman, Hall of Fame quarterback, Dallas Cowboys legend, is going to be at Hodgetown a week from today. How excited are you for that?
I'm so excited. I know you're more excited.
I am. I'm a huge Cowboys fan. I don't know why I guessed whether or not he was in the Hall of Fame. I'm used to just saying like future Hall of Famer for like current athletes, but he's a current Hall of Famer. But yeah, tell me a little bit about how exciting that is. I think that's awesome.
I mean, absolutely. You kind of mentioned it, like you said, we were talking about it before we came on air, and you kind of mentioned that you were like, you talked to Dennis Humphrey, who's the on-field MC.
Yeah,
there
on this show,
and
he teased it.
He was just like, yeah, we have an exciting football player if you're from Texas. You'll be excited, and you're just like, oh, it might just be somebody that did play for the Cowboys.
I know.
But Troy Aikman.
Troy Aikman is like, I
know your dad is going to be at that game.
Oh, I'm certain he will. I'm actually going to have to tell him like right after we get off here. I'm going to call my dad and tell him, hey, Troy Aikman's going to be at Hodgetown. That's how I'll get my dad to a Sod Poodles game. I've been trying to get him to go out. My mom and my dad, I've been trying, but now they have to.
And he's going to get a picture with him or of him, and he's going to hang it in the Cowboys man cave.
In the man cave, probably. It's super exciting. It's funny that you mentioned like Dennis Humphrey was on this show. And he said he had some cool guests coming on, and he told me before we came on air during the commercial break, he was like, don't ask me who they are, I can't tell you. And I was like, okay, I won't press on air, I promise, even though I want to. And then he dropped that hint. I wasn't even asking for any hints. I was just like, tell me how excited you are for the guests that are coming on. And he was like, yeah, as a football fan in Texas, as a fan of the NFL in Texas, I'm really excited. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And then I've been wondering since, and this far exceeds any expectations that I had. Troy Aikman is arguably, a lot of people would call him the most legendary Cowboy that there is. So that's very exciting. I wouldn't call him that, but top five for sure.
I know you're excited. You're going to be there at that game.
I will do everything in my power to be there at that game.
KJ, I will shoot the highlights. I will go to that game.
I will do everything. I'll anchor the 10 if you want me to. You can take the day off. I'll take it. Let's talk a little bit of local football while we do still have time. Want to talk about high school football, obviously spring training, gearing up for the fall. These teams are getting ready to go. What sort of teams do you have your eye on going into this fall? Obviously, some changes have been made. We were going to talk a little bit about Amarillo High. They're having to replace their quarterback, which is going to be definitely a big change over the summer. What do you see coming from some of these teams that are going to be making changes? Obviously, even Canadian won't have Coach Ketting anymore. So what are you looking at in specifics going into this fall football season?
Obviously, we had to say goodbye, or we are saying goodbye, in a few weeks. A lot of great senior athletes around the area are graduating. As you kind of mentioned there, Mason Graham was the reigning QB of Amarillo High, so that's going to be a huge position for the Sandys to fill. But, just kind of looking around, I know I blew them up a lot in football season, but Bushland, I think they are good.
I think I don't want to use the word bias, but you are a Bushland proponent.
I am
a fan.
I am 100% a fan. they are steadily good at every single sport. I mean, they really are. I mean, we saw it kind of last year, obviously, with football, and they have a lot of returners, starting with their phenomenal quarterback, Dawson Jacob. He's only a junior. The growth is probably going to see, you know, this summer, heading into his senior year of football season. I think Bushland is definitely going to be another force to be reckoned with this upcoming fall. I mean, as always, Canyon as well, having Coach Lovern there, you know, on the staff with Coach Winfrey is going to be a huge thing for the Eagles. Randall, another one. Obviously, Tascosa, I know they're, you know, losing some big players there, and Avion Carter and Tatum Barnes, but I still think that Coach Plunk is going to have a stellar program. I know that KJ spoke with him on Sports Drive the other day. He's still going to have a stellar program over there with the Rebels. I mean, I'm just super excited. It'll be, you know, our second football season, and we'll get to see just, you know, we'll have a better understanding and knowing everybody, you know, and just seeing the growth that we've seen from last year to this year, especially in some of those big programs and some of those big players. But I think Bushland's just going to be
all Bushland here with Riley Robinson. I'm interested.
I have no bias, okay?
No bias. Of course not. I'm interested as well. Like you mentioned, you know, especially for you and KJ being from out of town, but even for me, you know, I had a very limited understanding of high school football. I went to the Amarillo High games when I was a student. I cheered for Amarillo High, but I didn't pay attention to really anybody outside of Amarillo High, Tascosa, really the AISD schools is who I paid the most attention to, Caprock and Paladero as well in high school. So I was getting my feet wet as well this past football season in relation to, you know, 2A, 3A, all these other different schools that are around the area. The school that I'm most interested in this fall, as far as football goes, and really this kind of extends to all sports, but really with football,
West Plains
is West Plains.
Yes,
I am really interested to see how West Plains does, because obviously at the beginning of last season, a little bit of a struggle for them. They lost, I want to say that they were like 1-3 at one point. We're not looking good, but I mean, you don't really expect a first-year program to look all that good anyways, especially with a freshman at quarterback. And then, boom, they turn it around. They win 7 out of 8 in a row and make the playoffs. Now I'm interested to see, how does this team grow over the course of the offseason? Because you have a freshman quarterback in Reed Macon last year who was able to do what he did, and now we're looking at him as a sophomore. I mean, this is going to extend into all 4 years. His ceiling is so high. And that's just the quarterback position. They have a ton of young players on that team. It's comprised almost entirely of young kids. So it's really exciting for me to see where West Plains goes. I think that they're going to take a pretty huge leap under Coach Cummings in season 2.
I agree. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, not just in football, but in every sport. We kind of saw them set that base, set that foundation that they wanted. And, I mean, pretty much like most of their sports, it did pretty well, especially for their first season. So as you said, especially with Reed Macon back there, you know, leading its quarterback only as a freshman, it's going to be exciting to see what he does in his next 3 years as a Wolf. Yeah, really excited to see what they do, because that foundation that they set is already a lot better than I think anyone thought the foundation would be across all of these sports, all the success that they've been having. Riley, once again, thank you for joining. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to Troy Aikman coming into town. That's what I was going to say. That's what I'm looking forward to first and foremost, is Troy Aikman coming to town. We'll be right back to wrap things up here on Sports Drive in just a moment.